everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm so blessed to have all of you here with me today, in person and the Zoom people, wherever you are. And today I'm going to share some thoughts I have about the holy instant, that moment that some of you may be familiar with. And as we pursue that in today's lecture, let me know what you think afterward. As spiritualists, we know that everything we experience as material reality is born in the invisible realm, or so-called invisible realm, beyond space and time. A realm that consists of energy and, if you're a medium, information. And many of us seek to understand the infinite intelligence directly. Saints and mystics have shared their insights into the difference between the material reality, the world of objects and events, the quantum domain, which is a transition zone where energy turns into matter, and the virtual domain, the place beyond time and space, the origin of the universe. In the 14th century, Dame Julian of Norwich of England wrote a book, The Revelations of Divine Love, which is widely acknowledged as one of the great classics of spiritual life. Before I get into what she wrote, I just have to tell you the magic of building a lecture. I've had other instances that have happened throughout this one, but I woke up about 3:30 in the morning, and I've had this call to look at my nightstand next to the bed, which I have like 20 books there, some of which I haven't looked at in months because I have books scattered throughout the house. I'm one of those people. So I felt like, oh my goodness, I don't want to turn the lamp, but I'm going to. And all of a sudden, I was drawn to my book of Christian mystics. I haven't read this thing cover to cover. I started into it, and then I get onto another book, and I'll get back to it because it can be a bit dry reading about the saints and mystics. And so I look back in the index of the book for Julian of Norwich because I had been reading some of the other things, and wouldn't you know, the pages that that she's on, there's this special little card, which is like tucked really tight to the binding. So it's not like even flipping through, I would have found it. And it was right there as if to say, yes, this is who you need to talk about briefly in the lecture. And just to give you a little background about her, she's from the 14th century. Her writings weren't found until the 17th century, and they really haven't been studied until the 20th century. And she is considered one of the great medieval Christian mystics. And so she's in Norwich, England. She's had to live through the plagues of England that were going on. And she's 30 years old, and she's on death's doorstep. She can feel the lower half of her body is dead already. There's maybe a slight lift in her upper body, but the priest has been called to do the last rites. You know that? The final thing. She goes on to have an amazing array of visions, of connections with Jesus Christ, and that was something that was so very important to her to have. And she lived, and she wrote about them. And she was an anchoress, which I didn't know what an anchoress was. I was like, has anybody heard of an anchoress? What on earth could this be? And they had to go and stay alone in a cell, typically solitary, but then people would come and visit her, and they would get the wisdom. And so she was considered a great counselor at the time, and she would see them through things, the visions that she would have, the inspiration, the intuition that she could share with them. And she wrote extensively about not just her visions, but then what came later as she grew in understanding about those visions. And we have that opportunity too. Sometimes we have an amazing moment that occurs, and then it's not till decades later that we more fully understand that magic, that mystical representation that has been given to us in that holy holy moment. And for her, what's really significant about Julian is she is thought to have been the first woman to write a book in English which has survived. How have we never heard of her? Right? Has anybody heard of Julian? No, you haven't. But she's the first woman. And she's the patron saint of solitude and of writers. So Julian was known as a spiritual authority within her community, where she served as an advisor. And if you've ever heard of there was a lady named Marjorie who visited her, and she traveled all around, Marjorie Kemp, and she traveled specifically to see Julian of Norwich, to get her counseling and to get her understandings of the realm of the divine. So she's a significant person. And in her vision, one of the visions that she had, because she was elevated to cosmic heights at that illness at the age of 30. She lived into her 80s. She was a contemporary of Catherine of Siena, which we hear of all the time, right? Catherine of Siena, great. But they did not know each other. Catherine of Siena had like half the life that Julian did, just to give you a little more background. But she was elevated to cosmic heights where the whole universe was, quote, a little thing the size of a hazelnut lying in the palm of my hand. She asked God directly why he created the world. And the answer given was love. So over 600 years ago, Dame Julian revealed that God, in quotes, is our clothing that wraps around us, embraces us, and all encloses us for love. Remain in this, and you shall know more of the same without end. In other words, the sacred is not a feeling, it is a place. So with that moment, it's a place. The poet T.S. Eliot also describes this moment of sublime spirituality as a place in one of his poems. At the still point of the turning world, neither flesh nor fleshless, neither from nor towards. At the still point, there the dance is, but neither a rest nor movement. And do not call it fixity, where past and future are gathered. Neither movement from nor towards, neither ascent nor decline, except for the point, the still point. There would be no dance, and there is only dance. I can say, there we have been, but I cannot say where. And I cannot say how long, for that is to place it in time. Isn't that profound? It's a place, but to define it in time. Notice that the place to which Eliot refers to cannot be named. That still point is simply there. We cannot say where. It is both of the body and bodiless, and as such seems not to exist in language. How often have we had spiritual experiences that are ineffable? There are no words. It is only to be experienced during an atemporal moment of refined physical and mental activity, a moment of existence outside of time, a finely poised equilibrium. And this place, is a point in space, but maybe it's a gap between two places, like a 2-second time machine. We can hover in that still point and stretch it maybe a little bit further. One of my children is fascinated with time machine. And so I spoke with him about the still point, that we can reach it in meditation and we can reach it in other moments as well. And his question was, we can try to stop the time machine at a certain moment in time, but does the machine carry forward even if we stop? So he couldn't understand the physics of this. It's so neat to think about, isn't it? So the problem is that when we try to journey there, that still point, the material reality keeps pulling you back in, right? We've all been there, keeps pulling you back in. Let me give you some examples of that glimpse of the divine spirit in the most mundane of situations. Let's say in the midst of danger, you feel suddenly cared for and protected. You feel the connection with the divine in that moment. You deeply fear a crisis in your personal life, but when it comes, you experience a sudden calmness and you allow the path to unfold. Does that happen to you? Where you get to and then there's a calm and you are in that point of stillness. A stranger makes you feel a sudden rush of love. Like a visionary, you see the divine connection with another person. And a child looks into your eyes, and for a second you see an old soul looking back at you. And your intuition is ignited and alert to understanding. You're looking at the sky. We're all going to be looking at the sky in April. Looking at the sky. You have a sense of connection with infinite space. Infinite intelligence is being revealed through the unity with all. And we've had these experiences, haven't we? Have you seen those glimpses, those deeper connections with the source of all? Because I don't believe that saints and mystics are really so different from other human beings. We are all hardwired to have the God response. Deepak Chopra described the God response as definitive events and a bridge from our world to an invisible domain where matter dissolves and spirit emerges. Now, in his book, How to Know God, some of you may have read that. Maybe it's been a while since you've read it. But Chopra states that the brain senses its source, its origin, and Deepak Chopra also explains that the brain can directly contact the light, a form of pure awareness, that feeling of being joyful and blessed. And sometimes this contact can be bewildering because it has no roots in the material world. We've had those moments, haven't we? As mediums, as healers, just connecting with others as souls. And it comes as a vision, a healing, a miracle. And here's the kicker. God is known by looking in the mirror of yourself. I love how Deepak Chopra details this. I like to use both his names because there are other Chopras happening in the world now. Chopra details this, and I will share that with you now. And as I read this, I want you to identify yourself in your own version of God, and maybe how your version of God has shifted over time. And you remember your thoughts of that version of God and yourself and how you viewed God. So here we go. If you see yourself in fear, barely holding on with survival at stake, yours is a God of flight or fight. Which one? If you see yourself as capable of power and accomplishment, yours is a God of the reactive response. If you see yourself as centered and calm, yours is a God of the restful awareness response. If you see yourself as growing and evolving, yours is a God of the intuitive response. 3 more to go. If you see yourself as someone who makes personal dreams come true, yours is a God of the creative response. if you see yourself as capable of working miracles, yours is a God of the visionary response. Last one. If you see yourself as one with God, yours is a God of the sacred response. You can become the author of your own existence. That's something that we as spiritualists understand when it comes to personal responsibility. And that law of personal responsibility, the law of free will, all of it comes together with that law of creative reality. And you must engage your free will and choose your God well. And banish doubt, for all like wonder, love, transformation, and miracles are your birthright. Keep in mind that doubt is produced by your ego. It's not a part of your higher spiritual self. With practice and awareness, you can learn to observe your doubt rather than choose to own it. You make a decision now that you're going to meet that God spark within, that loving presence. And to do this, we must be willing to spend time in the inner silence of your being. Each day, create the time and space for quiet listening. In his book, Your Sacred Self, Wayne Dyer explains a method for this. He says to make an attempt to put your awareness in the space between your thoughts. Some of you may have read that book or saw him when he was here in Lilydale. That space between your thoughts is what he recommends. Fascinating. This might sound impossible, but I assure you that you do have the ability to experience this. So when you're in a thought, you slip into that gap that preceded the thought, and you put your awareness right there in that emptiness. And it's right there experiencing that space between our thoughts that eventually leads to the loosening of all the boundaries that we put around things, about people and other things and ideas. And as the boundaries loosen, our level of comfort actually increases. There's this unrestricted space that's between your thought. And that gap is actually where you experience the bliss of your spirituality. Have you noticed that? It's in that gap, that pause. There's a reason we have commas and periods in our language. And in that space, there is this bliss. And when you put your awareness there purposefully, you feel a strong sense of that comfort. Now, it is inevitable that you will return to a thought. So don't be kicking yourself. It's inevitable. And when you do, please don't judge yourself. Just gently and firmly slip back into that gap between this thought and the next one, or this one and the previous one. You get to choose. And as you push away the thought of that analytical mind that's judging you in those moments, and you just revel in the silence, you will feel the energy of the divine, loving presence that flows through you. And you are giving yourself a holy instant to make a silent affirmation that you are with God. And what is a holy instant? It's very different from instant mashed potatoes, instant this and the microwave, all the instant culture that we have. The holy instant is much, much different. It's no instant 1 minute rice thing, no. The holy instant is explained in the Course of Miracles very well. The Course of Miracles, it describes the holy instant as, quote, a time in which you receive and give perfect communication. It is a time in which your mind is open both to receive and to give. And the best part is that you get to claim the holy instant anytime and anywhere that you want it. I'm sold. It's incredible that this holy moment is in this moment and every moment, and it's available to us. It's an awareness of the holy instant, and it stands in this kind of shimmering readiness for your acceptance. And in those moments, you are humble before the God source of all. And yet you're great in God. And it includes the recognition that all minds are in communication. That means here and in the hereafter. Good news for us spiritualists. Soul to soul communication is a holy instant, a conversation of giving and receiving love. I find it ironic that in our modern day culture, it's taken over that word instant gratification, as I said, when the only instant that we should entertain is the holy instant. And at this point, I'd like to make clear the distinction between the now moment awareness and the holy instant. Because some of you might be going, well, that sounds like the now moment. Especially if you Eckhart Tolle and, mindfulness and all kind of hits you like that way. But the difference is the power of the now moment, which is a mindfulness moment, awareness. And it does help us. It helps us to be more non-reactive in a stressful or difficult situation. I hope you're using now moments because they are valuable, very valuable. And in his book, The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle states that the now can be seen as the main portal, an essential aspect of every other portal, including the inner body. You cannot be in your body without being intensely present in the now. And this is so exciting. I get excited about this stuff, guys. I really do. It can open a portal in your life that gives you conscious access to the unmanifested. Aren't you more excited than that? Come on. For the unmanifested is not really separated from the manifested. It's just so well disguised that almost everybody misses it. And if you know where to look, you'll find it everywhere, like treasure. The unmanifested is present in this world in silence. I'm kind of disappointed. I can feel it. I can feel you're disappointed by the word silence, aren't you? Well, let's take it a little farther. That silent conversation that's happening, even during the conversation that we're having or that you have with someone else or yourself, just become very conscious of the gaps between the words, the silent intervals between the sentences. For the now moment possesses within it the potential for a holy instant of healing. So the now moment's an excellent thing. It has the potential to up-level to a holy instant of healing. The now moment awareness can be consciously taken to its next step by, I know you're all ears, by giving all up to God so that the divine presence can bring our awareness into the holy instant. It's a lot to take in. But that's where everything, our thoughts, our words, our energy, and our actions are repurposed, and we reinterpret everything through the energy of forgiveness and healing. This is a moment of revelation, to be free from any inner or outer criticism or doubt. And you do not need to share your experience with others or convince them that you felt God within. You just simply notice for yourself how you shift from belief to knowing when the doubt that you have harbored is gone. You see, you are working with the knower, capital K, the knower. You're working with the knower, and the knower is your higher invisible self, invisible to some. Invisible self As you function from an awareness, your soul's self-identity, you detach yourself from your doubt and you move into a practice that shifts into a deeper embodiment of your being, capital B, being. And you can do this as you move through your physical life demands, as you harmonize your energy. I'll give you an example. My children recently started karate lessons. Literally, we're just a couple of weeks in, so I don't know that I'm a full-fledged karate mom yet. But we'll see what happens. At this point, you may be having visions of the Karate Kid movie with Mr. Miyagi and the wax on, the wax off. I know that's what I thought karate was. And I remember reading long ago about the links between martial arts and spiritual practice. And right now, because they're in it, I find myself really fascinated by the connection. So I started reading further and I found out that a focus on karate can lead to a personal transformation at high levels, even if karate is not used for fighting. In fact, kata, K-A-T-A, is a series of prearranged karate movements against an imaginary opponent with quickness and fluidity. When you first try kata, you fail. And this teaches you humbleness. You learn to be willing to make mistakes and to persevere. You learn about your capacities, and at first you're very goal-oriented. And then you practice for the sake of practice, to maintain your condition, and then the condition makes you practice. And eventually you're no longer practicing kata, you are embodying kata in a natural and spontaneous way. And you're regulating and you're harmonizing your energy and your inner nature. For to move vigorously, you must be alert and present in your body. You fail. One of the energetic benefits when we develop a movement and a spiritual practice is that we reach peace. I found this in myself with my own spiritual practice and exercise practice. I am not a martial arts person, but I do other things. How many of you are martial arts people? Oh, one hand. Awesomeness. Congratulations. The rest of us will do it in our other way. You see, we live in a body. You did know that, right? We live in a body. I'm being silly. And you can either drag it around as a dead weight, representing a series of problems or impediments, or you can move it vigorously. And many martial arts practitioners and other regular folks, I had to put that in there, have found that the more you train and move your body positively and vigorously, the more silent you are within. Isn't that interesting? Like squirming children, bundles of energy, you have to run them and then they'll sleep really well. The body has an impulse for movement and an impulse for stopping. Now, most people live in that middle ground. It's kind of that no man's land of neither stopping nor moving vigorously. And so they miss out on the peace that comes from truly stopping and truly moving. And when you truly stop in the moment of now and truly move in the moment of now, you will notice that the two states are very similar. There is poetry in emotion. The music in the beats and the rests, and they're all notes. There are these still points in time and space. Now, runners, Nancy, runners know that this kind of peace exists. Focused exercisers, no TV necessary, know this kind of peace. And meditators know this kind of peace. And this is further supported by a Taoist precept. Meditation in activity is 1,000 times superior to meditation in repose. You heard it here, folks. 100,000 times superior to meditation in repose. Isn't that incredible? Whew. The stillness in stillness is not the real stillness. Only when there is stillness in movement does the universal rhythm manifest. That's the end of that Taoist precept. It says it right there. Only where there is stillness in movement does the universal rhythm manifest. Now, for me, this brings to mind martial arts movies. I do like them. When there are these, I'll tell you what I like. It's when there are these warriors, right? And they're attacking the master, or the really cool fighter person. in this, what I think is really fascinating is that he just kind of calmly deflects the blows, and time bends and stills in those moments, and the path is known. It's like they're psychic or something, right? They have this moment, they just know what's going to happen. And this means, in that martial arts way, but also in our energetic living way, it means when we are pushed, we don't need to pull, we don't need to push, and we have the option of blending with the energy of that push. When pulled, we don't need to pull back like a tug of war. And if the attacker strikes, we can step aside. Isn't it fun to watch it when that happens? Or bad guys, you can't touch them. It's so great. I want to be untouchable. I'm sure you do too, when it comes to your life. And what happens is they become one with the attacker. Metaphorically, the attacker represents the dynamic world around you. And when you blend with your attacker, you open to a greater universe. It's not just your fear and your energy. It is an understanding of the universe and the environment all around you as being accessible as energy and understanding. So with a stillness at the heart of movement, your energy is not given over to the attack or to the problem, or the force is pushing against you. Instead, your energy is on the solution. One instructor, martial arts instructor, explained, quote, when a big problem comes up, instead of giving all of your attention to the problem, the alternative is to center yourself and then extend through the problem and past it to the end of the universe. Extend into infinity and a solution will come. Isn't that beautiful? And psychological research, of course, bears that out. Our expectations shape the information that we take in. A rigid expectation of an outcome can inhibit the natural flow of energy that pours forth when we act. A calm awareness means giving our heads a rest and our bodies and souls a chance. And in those spaces of peace, we hear the world unhindered by the clamor of our monkey minds. We encounter realities in dimensions that shimmer and speak to our souls. And then we find the moment of now. And beyond that, we find the holy instant. And sometimes we have a shared holy instant too. Spiritual healers know that moment well. A shared holy instant, communing with the divine and the person seated on their bench for healing. Mediums know that moment well. A shared holy instant, connecting the loved one in spirit with the recipient of a spirit message. And many of us know that moment. We feel the eternal embrace of the divine Mother, Father, God, a holy instant that feels like a mother holding their child with love and adoration. A holy instant that I feel right now with you. Blessings to you all. Thank you very much for listening.